My story begins in Monroe, Louisiana. I'm the youngest of three siblings. My mom pretty much raised us on her own for a lot of our childhood. And my father wasn't around. She did have the help of my grandparents, who my grandpa I was really close to. He was pretty much my father figure my whole childhood life. My grandpa ended up dying in December of 1992. After he died, I was still just a youngster, and it kind of tore me apart when I really think about it, because that was the only really type of man I had in my life. My mom remarried 15 years ago to Roger Ford. He's been a really good supporter, and he's been just a blessing in my life, someone to look up to, and just someone that I could actually call like a dad. I started hanging out with the wrong people after pretty much middle school. I started using drugs really early in life. Of course, I started out with marijuana, but it seemed like the quickly led to using cocaine, and I wasn't using it recreationally. I was just turned into a heavy user. I'd always been had a real addictive personality. I ended up being really hooked on drugs by the time right after I graduated high school. Somehow made it through high school with pretty good grades, but after I didn't have to wake up and go to school every day, I guess my career choice was selling dope. It ended the day I went to prison. I'd never been locked up before, and I just knew that that was the time when it was time to change in my life. I ended up giving my life to the Lord while I was in jail about 3 days after I got locked up. My mom always took us to church, and I was always a part of church, but I never had a relationship with Christ. When my knees hit that floor and that preacher came into Barber County Jail that day, my heart was open, and I was ready to meet this God that my grandparents and my grandmother and my mother have always told me about. I got locked up. I had to sit in the county jail for almost a year before I learned of what sentence I was going to get. They threw me a 15-year sentence at the age of 19 years old. Rather than take it the wrong way, I just saw this as a point in my life where I just needed to grab a hold of God's hand. And I was always, when I was locked up, I knew that I was saved. I never had a doubt in my mind I was saved, because I had learned and I have known and I have come to have a relationship with this awesome God. Whenever I got out, it wasn't even 6 months, the world sucked me back in. Had my first drink. I never really was an alcoholic, but I had my first drink that actually, I thought, well, hey, this is illegal. Guess I could start doing this. I ended up slacking off going to church. I ended up slacking in my prayer life, and of course I ended up slacking in reading my word. Say a year after I got out, I was right back where I'd started. I was to the point to where I was almost ready to die. I couldn't believe that I'd turned my back on God so much. I didn't know how he could ever take me back, or how he would just ever forgive me. I got so strung out on drugs and so strung out on alcohol to where I couldn't think clearly, and I was just almost willing to go back to prison just so I could have that relationship I had with him. And I would just say, God, I just want to hear your voice again. I just want to know that you hear me. I think I really got back closer to God after a sequence of events. I found out that my girlfriend was pregnant with my son. And the day after I got my second DUI, not long after that, I found out that my stepfather had stage 4 lung cancer. And that really made me start looking at life differently. I started to pray even when I didn't think God was hearing me. And I started to read my Bible even when I didn't want to. I prayed that God would put some godly people in my life, so I could just feel that love once again. My son was born on December 9th, 2012. And ever since then, it's like God has just taken my thirst and hunger for drugs and alcohol out of my life. I look at my son now and I can see why God put up with me after I turned my back on him, because the love I have for my son, I don't see how anything could be greater than that. But the Bible tells me that God loved us so much that he gave his only son. I don't know if I could give up my son. God ended up putting some godly people in my life here at South Point. I started coming to church regular. He answered my prayers about cleaning me up. He's answered my prayers about putting godly people in my life. I have a group of friends that I talk to, at least one of them every day, and I met them through the journey groups that are available here at church. These guys are closer than brothers that I have, man. I could trust them with anything I say. I could just give them any time I'm having a bad day with anything, my struggles and my deepest struggles. I still struggle a lot with worry. I still struggle with doubt sometimes, and I still have so many sins that God hasn't really taken away yet, but I know I'm going to have that until the day I die. I just thank God that I can hear his voice now, and I just thank him that when I pray, I know he hears me. And there's just it's an awesome feeling to know that the creator of the universe, the God who created everything out of just speaking it, he knows me. And not only does he know me, he loves me. And he loves me so much that he snatched me out of that life, and he snatched me off of that road to death that I was going. I just want to thank God, man, for saving my life. I felt like I was just had a rebirth after God cleaned me up from the alcohol and drugs. To the backslider out there, if you've ever known Christ and you've turned your back on him, don't think that he won't take you back. And for the parents out there who've been praying for wayward kids, or it seems like your children are never going to get better, even though you pray, all I can tell you is to keep praying and never give up, because I know there's been many nights when my mom had felt hopeless about me, especially after she had seen me so on fire for the Lord. And then she seen me go back. Jesus is doing something big at this church, and Jesus has done something big in my life, and if he's done it in my life, he will do it to anybody, and he's willing to do it for anybody. My name is Marsala, and I am second.